I'm Nick Hernandez, and thank you so much for joining us on the Positivity Matters podcast. Today, I have Ryan Wieber as my guest. He is the director of the Lincoln City Libraries. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Nick. Thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for giving introductory remarks for the International Day of Happiness event that we just had at the Bennett Martin Library on Saturday, March 23rd.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was my pleasure.
You have been moving from one community to another that has a strong history with ties to well-being research. So I understand you were most recently in Kalamazoo, home of the Fetzer Institute, which is one of the larger funders of well-being research, and now here in Lincoln, Nebraska. You're in the land of the Nebraska Human Resources Institute, which is where the Don Clifton, who purchased the Gallup poll, began his work in with this mentoring program. And currently, the Gallup organization is doing things such as research for the World Happiness Report. And there are a bunch of random connections, but here we are. And with you being in the position that you're in with the library system, it to me it feels like in so many ways the libraries are the place where people get to like feed their curiosity. It's the place where people can have meetings with get to know the community better. It touches so much of the life of a community, and there's all this history, and I don't know. It just seems like kind of a extremely interesting place to be from which to spend one's career and to affect the life of a community. Uh, I guess maybe tell us a little bit about your history with this and if you have any interest in the well-being side of things, awesome. If not, I'm happy to flesh that side of things out. And yeah, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Thanks. I'm glad to. Yeah, I was born and raised in Michigan, and didn't start out my career as a librarian. I actually went to school. I got a history degree at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, and I had intended to take that and go work in a museum or in archives. I always loved history, but I didn't necessarily want to teach it. So I ended up, though, going to grad school. I went to Wayne State University in Michigan, where I went through their library science master's level program with the intention of getting that degree, but really going the archival or archives management route. And that's what I did. So graduated a long time ago and started out my career as a librarian at the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Arts Research Library, where I did a lot of archival type work. It was a great museum and a great collection. And then spent a few years there. Then I went to Cranbrook Educational Community just north of Detroit in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. It was an arts community, and I was the archivist there. Um, then I ended up in public library land because my family was growing. We wanted to get back over to the west side of the state. My wife is from Kalamazoo. I'm originally from Lansing,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to. Well, I took a job as director of a smaller size public library, and I was the director at that library. My first day working in a public library was as a director, and I got to get my hands involved with a lot of different things. I didn't do the same thing every single day, and I like that. I like to have variety in my day-to-day activities, and but from day one, loved it. Loved being in a community where you could see the impact of what you were doing, whether it was the programs that we put on or um, doing story times or buying books, seeing books leave shelves, building up the library program, and making it more recognized and known within the community. That was all a ton of fun for me, and just had a blast doing it. And our family was growing at the same time. We were raising our kids in that community, and I got to see firsthand the benefits of literacy and early literacy with young kids, and how important that is for a successful start in life. So I feel just very grateful for the opportunities that I've had, and I think one of the best parts of my job is just being out there in the community, meeting folks. I love to just greet people as they come in the door, and everyone comes to the library for a different purpose. And I would say that for the most part, libraries are perceived as positive places. Um, you see that when people come back daily or weekly or once a month to get their books or use a computer or attend a program, a book club. They're coming in there because they're experiencing something very positive, and it's important to them and their lives. Um, so, and you also see it when library issues come to a vote. If there's a need to expand or to build a new facility, oftentimes you have to go ask the public for a bond issue or renew a millage or so forth. Uh, and it's not always an easy election or easy vote. It's not always going to be a yes vote, but for the most part, those renewals pass, those new asks pass, and that's because people associate libraries as, again, places that bring good influence and a good quality of life enhancement to a community. And how can you say no to a library and to reading and to little kids and to seniors, all the community, who have the ability to be influenced or impacted by what a library can bring. So, yeah, I would say overall, libraries are positive places. I have not, Nick, in speaking with you a couple of times, um, you really introduced, positivity matters and this International Day of Happiness. I wasn't really familiar with it in the past, but when you guys had your event here this past Saturday, it was evident that, yeah, why not? The library, the library is that place, and we should host an event like that. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, I've always thought of the library as sort of the heart of community in a way, and it feels like that's very much the case here in Lincoln. And I was introduced more deeply to the library by Mylan Wall from he's the director of the Heartland Center for Leadership Development and one of the presenters later in the afternoon. He had been on the board of the Nebraska Literary Heritage Association, which is the entity around the special collection on the third floor there at Ben and Martin Library with the archive, the non-circulating archive that spotlights Nebraska authors. And is this I'm guessing that's fairly typical for a community to have some kind of special collection. Coming from your background with the interest in the archival side of things, how are we doing here in Lincoln? And what do you think of our Nebraska room?
Yeah, great question. We first off have a tremendous library system, well supported by its community, well beloved, and I think that whenever you go to a community, that's typically the case. You're going to have a good portion who recognize the value and love their library, and they have the best library in the world. But we really have great program here, but with also lots of opportunities for enhancing our services and reaching more people, reaching, especially in this community, new immigrants, new Americans, who may not be familiar with the free services that a public library can bring. But yeah, I see lots of great potential in what we can do here. We do have, as you say, you mentioned the Heritage Room up here of Nebraska authors. I'm speaking from Bennett Martin Library in downtown Lincoln, and we have a wonderful collection started in the 1950s where we recognize and honor the heritage of our Nebraska literary efforts as expressed through our authors and what makes that collection special is not just the physical items, but it's the activities that surround it. When we do our longstanding Ames reading series, where authors come in, usually or lately they're on Sundays, quarterly throughout the year, we'll have an author reading and a visit. And we do lunches at the library through the NLHA. Um, those happen monthly, most months of the year. That's on a Wednesday afternoon. I believe it's the first Wednesday of every month. And it's those activities. We also have a Nebraska authors database where all of the biographical information, bibliographies related to our Nebraska authors. We originated this database here and accessible from our website. It's a great resource. So if you can't get in to visit the Heritage Room, you can access it at home. So yeah, I would say that is it typical? I think that in various ways across the country, states honor their heritage, their literary heritage in one way or another. I think we're probably the exception with how specific and longstanding our collection in our room here is. We're also working on creating a local history section here at Bennett Martin. We've always had a collection of books, of course, that talk about or provide Lincoln history or history of Nebraska type resources.
Mm. Hmm.
But we're pulling that all together. And up on the second floor at Bennett Martin, we're carving out an area and arranging furniture, and we're going to be illustrating with artwork and photography that signifies that um, our heritage here, all peoples, is important. And central library like Bennett Martin for a community the size of Lincoln should have a local history collection that um, people can come and visit and learn and do research or check out books or just look at photographs and get a better understanding of the importance of the community around them. So that's underway right now. We hope to have that uh, ready to go and in place by early summer.
Oh, fascinating. I love hearing about things like that. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
One of the questions I like to ask guests is, what are your strengths and how do they play out through the work that you do? And you were so kind as to share your Gallup Strengths Finder results, and it comes out as a ranger, futuristic, learner, responsibility, and strategic. Those sound like a great set of strengths to have as a library director. What, I guess, what of those struck you, and how do you see them playing out through the work that you do?
I'm giggling as you were reading off those because I told you I had just taken the Gallup Strengths Finder recently within the last 2 months or so, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Um, I don't disagree with any of those, but I think some that were at towards the bottom of the 34 possible ones surprised me that they were so low. But I know that it's all kind of relative, and it doesn't mean that I don't have some of those. But yeah, I think I wouldn't disagree. When we when I look at it, am I futuristic? Yeah, but I'm also historic. I
Mm-hmm.
rely on the past a lot. I mean I love history and I'm an archivist by nature and I recognize the value of what or how important history matters to us. So but I'm also, when it comes to my professional role in my position, I think a lot of those kind of go hand in hand. The futuristic, the focus, the strategic. It's I'm all the arranger. I'm always trying to um, understand or figure out how we can get to the next step or how we can get to um, our strategic priorities, down the road. And I'm lining things up in my head, and I'm trying to. I want to make sure that our library is one of the best ones in the country. We have a lot of great things here in Lincoln. Our quality of life is great. It's great to have UNL here. It's great to have nice schools and parks and trails, and our libraries should be seen um, is just as great. So I, I think that on my brain, especially right now in my role here at the library system, again, well supported. We have historic, great traditions at this library. A lot of patrons love us, but I'm also eager to explore new opportunities and make sure that we are one of the best libraries and that our residents and our taxpayers get the best bang for their buck in what we do here. And um, yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities where we can make improvements in technology and in our spaces and in our programming and reaching more people too. There's still a lot of folks who they're not against libraries. They don't use it or consider them in their daily life like maybe they used to, or maybe citizens used to, 20, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I brought my own capabilities for internet access and streaming, and I we ran into zero issues with the public access to Wi-Fi at the library for streaming the whole event. So that was
Oh, good.
awesome.
Yeah,
So
great, great. And now, one other facet of that is all of our buildings have meeting rooms or spaces where you don't even need equipment. You can just show up and turn on the TV, turn on the Zoom technology, and share your presentation or connect to someone else across the world and conduct a meeting with high quality video and sound. And it's important. That's expected for people now.
so in the world of libraries, it sounds like we've got some good strengths, relatively speaking. What's happening in the world of libraries more broadly, and what kind of trends are happening across maybe the country, the world, perhaps?
Sure.
I'm not sure about the support for libraries in other countries. It seems like it's pretty strong here in the US, but yeah, what are trends in the world of libraries these days?
Well, I think that, when people think of libraries, they think of books. And a lot of libraries 100 years ago, 125 years ago, were impacted by a great benefactor named Andrew Carnegie. And as a result of his benevolence, his giving, he helped partially fund many Carnegie style libraries across the country back in the early 20th century. And back then, libraries were pretty transactional in the sense that we had this great structure that held books, and it placed and emphasized the importance of reading and literacy in books. And folks would come in and check out those books. Maybe they had a table they could sit down and read that book without taking it home. But the transaction um, dictated the style of the building and the design of it and the function. And I think that over the course of the last 20, 30 years, especially, we've seen a dynamic change where libraries are still that place where printed material and information and knowledge is super important. But we're also places of lifelong learning where you can experience something through a program, through a lecture, through a shared book club experience. You know, the civic nature of libraries are super important. Um, it's kind of one of those intrinsic values that I think a lot of people know in their heart, but maybe it just doesn't get mentioned, is that as a space, it's people love to visit. People, I like going to a grocery store once in a while because I know I'm going to see someone there, and I think that
Mm.
same thing
Mhm.
happens at a public library. It's a place to gather, and whether you're into talking to someone when you get there, or you need to see another human being sharing the joy of what you're sharing and checking out a book, you know, there is a value to that, and so libraries are changing, and um, it's the programming, and I would say even more recently, within the last 10, 15 years or so, where you're seeing more partnerships with other organizations or other schools in terms of the activities that are taking place, because we know that we need to be that place where this quality of life or this lifelong learning is taking place, but the library staff themselves perhaps aren't the best or um, best trained, you know, to bring in a program. So we count on outside partners to help teach a class or provide some type of service within our spaces. And when you're doing that, and mixed with the idea that folks are coming into libraries to study, to meet, to have a cup of coffee and read, our spaces can't be quite so hardwired like they used to be. And I would say that most of our current buildings, facilities here in Lincoln are hardwired, you know, according to the era that they were built. You know, you're going to have a program room, and it's not very flexible. You may be able to close it off with a divider wall or make it smaller, or maybe we have a couple study rooms or one smaller meeting room, but uh, library patrons' expectations have changed, where just like that coffee shop, you expect to be able to come in and meet with someone in a smaller space, or um, um, have access to just different types of spaces. And libraries of today and the upcoming future need to be a little bit more modular in design. So as collections change, the sizes of collections, um, the ability to bring in pop-up activities or programming or art displays or cultural activities, music, you know, we don't always need a big program room. Um, it would be nice to be able to utilize similar spaces for just different functions. So I think that's, you know, it's certainly a big direction when you look at the design and functionality of modern libraries. They're very interesting places, and
Mm.
they're not always quite so static. Every time you go in, you may see a different um, display of paintings or art exhibit that has changed out.
Mm.
Uh,
Mhm.
there's oftentimes local universities or schools will have their own space in there where they're bringing in their own activities or programs, and that piques our interest here too. I think that as we go about trying to come up with solutions on how we replace our downtown library with something that is more appropriate for 2025, you know, we're looking at those kinds of things. We have the potential of great partners here in Lincoln, whether it's UNL or Ollie, you know, for classes for seniors. The arts, we have art museums in town. We have children's museum. We have schools. We have lots of potential where the library with those collaborations can be an even more interesting and impactful space. um, where folks may come in for more than just checking out a book. They may spend an hour or two or three partaking in different activities.
Mm, mhm. And in bringing a vision like that into reality, what is needed? People making the connections, money, maybe flesh out the vision as much as you like. And what are some of the
Yeah, I think
how
it's
can Lincoln support that?
yeah, great question. I think it's just talking about it. And I think it's visiting other libraries. It's demonstrating, hey, this is what's happening in other big cities across the country with the direction of public libraries. It's happening. And sometimes folks just aren't aware of the potential of the opportunities and what today's modern libraries look like. So part of it is a communication issue, right? And I think that oftentimes when people here at least think of, oh, you need to replace or you want to replace the downtown library with something newer, they're thinking, okay, you'll have a new shell, and maybe it's it looks modern, it's made of the right materials and it's attractive, but inside the function is going to be still the same thing that we've had for the last 60 years or so, and that's not the case. We would design a building that would be able to accommodate today's purposes, whether it's just there's more education going on, there's more um, uh, casual drop-in usage of study rooms and meeting spaces and again flexible seating, so all of that kind of thing. But how do you get it done? You need to talk about it, you need to demonstrate. And 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 the library itself, where we recognize that we it's important for us to make sure that we share the impact. We're not quite so passive in the sense that, oh, we know people will show up here. We we know that we can provide the materials and the programs, and they know about us. But I think that it's incumbent upon the library, the city, or the library board to be advocates for making sure that we discover ways where more people find out about the value of what the library brings. And again, great opportunity to demonstrate. Oftentimes folks will say, "Oh, I don't really visit the library because I get stuff online." You know, um, I get stuff either through the library's online services, which is great, no complaint there, or I go to Amazon and within a day I got something delivered at my front door. Well, first of all, you are paying library taxes and and you can usually find, especially in a bigger library system like Lincoln, what you're looking for here. And if you can't, then oftentimes we can get that for you and get it in a timely way. But it's just so important that we think of the extraordinary ways to not market what we do, but just communicate and show how we can be useful in folks' everyday lives, whether it's for recreational needs or entertainment, with DVDs or audiobooks, or accessing our resources that we have online, our databases and our digital and streaming functions. A lot of folks aren't familiar with that, and we again have to be more thoughtful and intentional in how we educate. So that's big on my mind right now.
Mm. So for say someone that hasn't walked into a library and let's go back maybe even pre-internet, it's like what what can the library do now that maybe they have no idea?
Sure. Well, I think they would be surprised at the collections that we have. We still have a great print and physical collection, but we also have just access to an incredible digital collection that you can use and check out from the convenience of your home, whatever time of the day. We can all, and again, if you can't find that printed book and we can't perhaps purchase it, we can go across the country and look for it through our interlibrary loan services, We also have a home delivery service for someone who may not have the ability to physically visit a library.
Mm.
We have staff who um, attend to requests that we get either email or over the phone, and we check out and deliver through the mail um, books every week to individuals who again can't come into libraries. So that's our home delivery system that's really popular. Um, we have outstanding programming, and we especially for story times or young ones, from lap sit to music and movement to story times for preschoolers on site. We have many different activities throughout the week at most branches. And then we also take those services out on the road where through outreach efforts, we'll visit schools and preschools and community centers and parks throughout the, summertime especially. We'll introduce the library in that way. We'll bring the library to folks and team that up with library card signups. So we're registering people for library cards without them having to come into a scary place like a library for the first time. Yeah, and it's a couple examples of some collaborations that we're doing right now. We have a partnership with the Lead Center for Performing Arts where we're calling it Page to Stage. So this year they've had several programs that are based on books or have been transferred to book format. And what better way for us to benefit them by bringing in their artists or their performers during the run of a show and have a Q&A with an audience here and introduce, behind the scenes what it's like to be an actor or actress uh, to library patrons. So that's Page to Stage. And then we just actually this month we're doing something with the Lincoln Symphony Orchestra, introducing or elevating, the appreciation for arts and especially music by having members of the orchestra come in and help out at story times and reading books. And then the benefit to the symphony is that we're introducing music to our young ones, and then families can get free tickets or passes to a concert that's upcoming next week at
Mm.
Nebraska Wesleyan. So great way. I mean, yeah, come in and hear a story, check out a book on music, but then go see a concert live, in performance.
Fascinating. I don't know if this is the norm. I'm just sharing a personal story here, but I believe day two, when I came to Lincoln, Nebraska, the first thing that I did was to get my library card and then from the Lincoln Public Libraries. And then I proceeded to go to UNL, Union College, Nebraska Wesleyan, and inquire as to their community library programs. And I believe at the time I was able to get a library card at all three. And so I was fully enabled to get almost any book that I could think of. those those very niche scholarly works you find in the university systems, just the most recent release. So that
Mhm.
was quite a joy to find so much access to knowledge and information here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, that's great.
I am a lifelong lover of libraries, and I really appreciate you being willing to be a guest on the podcast here.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we need more of you out there. So that's and we know we can make that happen. So it's exciting for us to think in the future of how we can again introduce the library to new folks and more folks and new residents here to Lincoln.
So maybe some basic information for listeners. How do they find out more about the library system here?
Sure. Well, you can visit any one of our 8 locations. We have a downtown central branch that's Bennett Martin, and then convenient um, branches across the city, including our newest version, which is the Williams Branch Library, which reopened after a 2 to 3 month closure last spring and summer. It is located out on Northwest 48th, in front of Arnold Elementary. The Williams Branch, it's teamed up with the Air Park Rec Center. You can go work out or play a game of pickleball and then go pick out a book. It's a great new facility. Or you can also, of course, visit lincolnlibraries.org. That's our website, and see all of the wonderful resources we have. We're going to unveil a new website, which will be even more helpful and organized in a way where folks can get access to things, I think, in a quicker way. That is unveiled on April 10th, I believe is the date. So a couple weeks out. Well, you're always welcome to call a library if you need specific information. We'll have someone helpful to provide reference help. That's 402-441-8500.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Positivity Matters podcast. You can find more about what we do at www.positivitymatters.org. Ryan Wieber, Director of Lincoln Libraries, thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick. This was great. Appreciate it.